Yes, hello again everybody, George here with Kilohearts, and it's finally time to talk about this Resonator patch I've been banging on about for weeks and weeks now. This is an instrument built in phase plant based all around the Resonator snap-in, which uses a combination of tuned delay tails and some other clever maths to create a discernible note from a noise impulse. You can feed pretty much anything into it and it will resonate with a particular note, and that allows for all kinds of musical possibilities. All I've done here is flesh it out very slightly into a playable instrument by adding filters to shape the sound coming out of it a little bit, adding a couple of different options of noise impulse to put in, using obviously the noise generator is one option, but I've also offered the sampler option here. You can load whatever sound you want into that, and using a few modulators to make these things happen and a few macros to tidy it up. But I will say, it's only the very bare bones. It's the very beginning of the process here. I'd be very interested to see where you would take this instrument next to suit your particular workflow or your particular style of music making. You might remember back in January, I made the Cyber Grime track and I used Faturator here to create a little bit of something interesting. I've left that in there just as an example of how you can build on this patch and fine-tune it to your purposes, but you might do any number of other interesting things with it. So why not download the patch from the link in the description after you've liked the video and subscribed and all that, of course, and then optimize this from this starting point into something that you would work with in your music, and then upload it and send it back to us either on Discord, Facebook, here in the comments, whatever you like. So the key information here is you have a noise source, something to just excite the process. So in this case, I've got literally the simplest possible little trigger of noise, a little cheep, going into Resonator. Then I have a couple of filters shaping the sound. This one is a big band reject filter controlled by the color knob here, and that allows you to sculpt some of the harmonic information. One of the things that makes things sound real and organic and acoustic is the fact that they have imperfect overtone spectrums. So if you sweep this around, you can have very rudimentary control over the shape and balance of your overtones. Obviously, the way that you excite is important too. So the strike here refers to the attack time of the envelope. So you can create an attack that sounds much more like a hit or a pluck versus some kind of strum or soft rub. I've even included an option using the sustain there for a bow sound, like you're running a bow across a violin string. And depending on the overtones and the particular frequency content of the sound generated, that could sound like a flute being blown into, or, as I say, a stringed instrument being bowed. I've found it's quite good for the kind of old-fashioned, slightly nasal, baroque sounds, especially if you use the saw wave option on the Resonator here. So a lot of variety there. I think I like the sort of silly harp noises the most. Another way to affect the type of sound is with the quality of the noise going in. So for example, this key-tracked smooth noise option gives a completely different output than the broad spectrum noise. I've obviously got a couple of filters shaping that noise even before it goes into the Resonator. Those are optional and adjustable, so do what you like with those. And of course, the envelope settings for the noise here are completely adjustable. Do whatever you like. Now let's talk about decay and damping, the other two macros here. Decay obviously is the length of the resonant tail. That applies to the decay on the Resonator module there, so that you can have either a very short pluck or a longer sustained tail. I should point out, by the way, that it's important to have polyphony turned on in the effects lanes, otherwise every note will cancel out the last one on Resonator here. And then damping, this is probably the most complicated bit. Almost all acoustic sounds have the same feature of losing high frequency information over time more quickly than low frequency information. This is to do with the way that sound travels through a medium, through air usually. Higher frequencies dissipate and are interrupted due to their short wavelengths much more quickly than low frequencies. This is why an alpine horn goes instead of so that the sound can carry miles and miles over valleys. So to simulate that, I've got this damping feature which uses a low-pass filter attached to an envelope to simulate the loss of high frequencies through the time of the note. As you see, the filter opens and closes to a greater or lesser degree depending on the amount of damping. So if we have full decay and minimum damping, we have a long tail of high frequency rich stuff, which is all very nice. And if we increase the damping, we have a much more realistic sound. Psychoacoustically, that's just more familiar to us. So all of these things are just options to make things possible. Another option is to use your own noise impulse in the sampler. So here I've got one of the factory samples called Filing from the transients section of the Simple Sound Bank there. Just as an example of a noisy transient sound, which is rather different from the instantaneous trigger or tick up here. And when we send that through Resonator, some of the characteristics of that transient are imparted to the sound of our instrument. And of course, different sounds will give you different results. To stop the sample from key tracking, I've put the harmonic down to 0 and the shift at 440 with A4 as the root note. That means that no matter what key you play on the keyboard, you will get the same length of sample. It won't pitch track and change speed and pitch as you move around the keyboard. That's important because your note information is going straight to the resonator to control the pitch of the note that comes out the end. You don't want also the pitch of the sample to have an effect. And of course, you could do any kind of wacky stuff you wanted with the loop and create longer tails. If you so wished. And from there, it's up to you. I mean, what features you add to this instrument are entirely in your control and in your imagination. I look forward to seeing what they are. As I said, for example, I used Facturator and a couple more envelopes here to create a slightly kind of wired up, dirty sound. I've also got this LFO as an optional modulator working with the mod wheel so that we can have a kind of vibrato. Because you always want something to do with the mod wheel, don't you? And I've added a reverb on the end just because this is my want usually, is to have a reverb to create the sense of a real acoustic room or space. Without it, it sounds that much more clinical and artificial. But for example, adding a delay with high feedback. It's all entirely up to you. I leave it in your hands. Check the link below after, as I say, you've subscribed to the channel and liked the video. Check the link below in the description to download this patch and have a play with it for yourself. See what inventive additions you can come up with to make this work in your particular workflow or style. And we'll look forward to hearing about it. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.